R&B. Make that crop top drop like black socks in the black top, ballin' at the park. We ain't stop till after dark. Centric at the plug, we listen to Noriega. Shoot shirt phones through the heat like Darth Vader. College we was rocking the Supra, Darth Vader's. Now we watching Moses stick our noses in the fader. Before Tory Kelly told the homie to play it, we stack keys in the dorm, praying one of us to make it. Me and Swain thought we'd have to resort to crippin'. Now me and the wife we usurped the.
I guess that's it. That's how we're starting. Just like that.
No just gradual fade, no nothing.
Nah, no gradual fade. We're just gonna stop it right there. That's it. That's it. Yo, Strange Fruit Sociology. We're doing it again.
Let's go. Let's go.
Month of August. This is actually the first semester for the first week of the semester for me.
Oh, really?
You? Yeah.
No. So I mean, you're teaching class? Like
yeah. I have class at 2:00 today.
Oh, word.
So it's official.
Oh, I'm sorry for being a little bit late then, bro. It's like shit.
No, you're good. You're good. Hence the collar. I got the collar on today. I'm gonna wear a bow tie a little later, but
nice.
I'm not wearing a bow tie for y'all.
We're not that special.
No, you're not. Y'all family.
True.
So let's get in. We got a lot to talk about today.
We got a lot to talk about today. Somebody better keep track of time.
So much. Keep track of time. I told you, I got things to do. So much to talk about. What's the word of the day?
The word of the week is
word of the week.
Discrimination. This is a concept used in a lot of different spaces, whether it's sexism, racism, classism. That's one that people don't hear a whole bunch about. Ageism. It's talking about how the institutions perpetuate discrimination rather than necessarily any individual actions and whatnot, outside of individual actions, that there's literally people who could be doing their job and discriminating against people, but they're doing their job. They're literally doing what's, in their job description, and yet it's having wider institutional and societal effects and whatnot. It doesn't have to be announced. It doesn't have to be claimed. But these are, when we talk about institutionalized effects, I think about the difference between, I normally think about I think about the difference between crack cocaine versus, powder cocaine. There's nothing in there in the law that says this is going to have a negative effect on people of color and on poor people. But when they apply the law, just by doing what's there, just by doing what's on paper, you wind up having hugely detrimental effects to people of color and poor communities. Right. And so institutional discrimination.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the concepts that's reoccurring that almost gets, and at least in my syllabus, it's supposed to be introduced like in week 7 or 8. And one of those things that I have to, by week 2, already say, this is what we're talking about the entire semester, really. Particularly, I think about education. I use this as an example, how a lot of folks, especially teaching community college, a lot of folks don't know how to write very well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily that they don't have the talent or the skills to write very well. It's because they went to high schools where teachers didn't spend a lot of time or give a lot of attention or effort teaching that particular student how to write very well. And the reason why that teacher did not do that is because they were busy disciplining other students or because they didn't have right. So it's this effect that shows up later, and you can quantify the effect of it later in a grade, but the reasons have showed up in some sort of discriminatory action long before. And again, it wasn't on purpose.
Yes.
That high school teacher, that middle school teacher was doing their job, and in doing their job, for the benefit of the entire system, one student was discriminated against, oftentimes, again, in a way that doesn't show up much later. So there's lots of different ways I know to talk about and teach institutional discrimination. But let's move into our top story, because we are really talking about some drastic effects in institutional racism.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
So there was a study, and I believe the New York Times, right? You got this out of the New York Times?
Yep.
That was looking at racial bias in policing. And they took a lot of their information from a study done by Roland G. Fryer called An Empirical Analysis of Racial Differences in Police Use of Force. It's a very sociological title, very academic. Empirical Analysis of Racial Differences in Police Use of Force, right? And essentially what the findings were was, we're just gonna be real today, right? All the way.
Yes,
Essentially what the findings were was everything that Black Lives Matter has been saying was happening.
Yeah.
It's everything that Michelle Alexander, the new Jim Crow, was saying was happening. It's everything that homies on the street was saying has been happening.
Yes.
And so it took an empirical analysis to help validate this information, as if this was the first one. We know there's been hundreds of them, and the New York Times to publish it. So, Dr. Hoskins.
Yeah, so let me give a slight correction on that. That Roland Fryer, he's actually where I'm going to get my stat from. But the research that the New York Times pulled from was a FBI report. And pushed by I don't want to say it was pushed by the Obama administration, because that makes it seem like only Obama cared about it, and he might well have had been the only one that cared about it. But this was a nationwide report. This was something that was very real, very in depth. It went through a lot of different paces, and as you said, it wound up demonstrating a lot of things that Black Lives Matter has been saying for now the last few years, that Black activists have been saying for the past few decades, that the Black Panthers and the Nation of Islam have been saying for even more decades. In every space, in every way, the policing as an institution discriminates towards people of color in general, Black people specifically, period, point blank, no ifs, ands, and buts about it. And you continue to see the stats break down every single time as you're looking at all of this. I don't know if a whole bunch of people know about the broken windows policies. It's called the broken windows policies, where police officers focus on small crimes in order to try to deter murders later on, like the bigger crimes later on and whatnot. And so, which honestly, it sounds good in practice as a matter. You know what? And I'll even say this: it sounds good as a parenting technique. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. It's like, look, if you want to stop your child from having temper tantrums when they're a 13-year-old, then you better nip that in the bud in the very beginning. I think you need to put your boy on mute.
My man Viet joined the conversation, and he all loud and stuff. Viet,
mute. There we go. All right, cool. You still got me, Ant?
I got you.
Okay. And so anyway, this broken windows policy, we find out that this is, that it crazily targets Black people. As a matter of fact, let's see, African Americans were 95% of people who were stopped 10 or more times by the police, with all the stop and frisk stuff. That I don't know if people know about that on the West Coast, but in the New York area, Black folks definitely know about some stop and frisk. And that there was, I love this story, is that there was one Black man in his later 50s who was stopped over 30 times in a 4-year time span, right? And not one of those times did he even get one citation. And so then, like, what does this even mean, right? Philando Castile, may his soul rest in peace. He's been a lot of the talk lately. He was pulled over 49 times in the past 13 years before, obviously, he was shot and killed by the police. Black drivers are more likely to be searched, but this is the part that trips me out. Because everybody always talks about how Black people are, or let me restate, that a more conservative side of this argument is that Black people are more likely to do criminal behaviors, right, or to be in possession and all of that stuff. So I was like, look, all right, let me hear that. Let me listen. I'm a researcher. I'm a scientist. Let me entertain that. Okay, well, here we got FBI report says Black drivers were more likely to be searched illegally, by the way, but 26% less frequently found contraband. But African American drivers had less contraband on them than white drivers were. Like, they were less likely to have contraband on them than white drivers were. So what does that mean then? What that should tell police officers is that they should be pulling over more white people if they want to catch people with illegal contraband. That's what the data is saying. However, we continue to see police officers, again, the play on words, the police officers surveilling our black bodies, and and taking things that people normally do. Like if somebody was following me, of course I'm going to look at if someone who is undercover, who's wearing plain clothes, is following me. Of course I'm going to look at them suspiciously and or nervously as I'm looking at them. However, these police officers are saying, oh, this person looked at me and they were nervous, and so that's why I felt like they were suspicious. That's why I stopped and frisked them. That's why I did what I did. And like I said, it's just, I got more stuff to go on, but I wanted you to jump in because, I know our listeners can only hear one of us at the same time.
No, no, no. Well, then that's for the Facebook Live folks. I don't know why I put this on Facebook Live. I guess just to show people that we actually doing stuff out here in these streets.
Word.
Yes, but the Facebook Live folks, they can only hear me. I don't know if Bruce, you run Facebook Live on your Facebook, but Facebook Live, you can only hear me. So go to YouTube, join the Hangout, and then you can hear both of us. No, I think I'm ready for you to get to the study, because I don't know how many times we can talk to each other. I don't know how many times we can talk to other people and just agree that this is what it is. I mean, we're at a point where the numbers, the data do not. When you reject the science, when you reject the method, when you reject the quantitative side of it, there's not really an argument I can really help folks make who don't want to believe that this phenomenon exists, right? And the people who don't want to believe that this phenomenon exists, quite frankly, are rarely the victims or the potential victims for this phenomenon, right? So I want to be I don't want to waste my effort in trying to educate people in this space who, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I think in the classroom, I have no problem engaging in these conversations over and over and over again, right? Because that's our job, both in paycheck and both like our calling. However,
yeah.
What I'm always interested in having conversations about, particularly like in this space, is just some of the not necessarily the data, but some of the surprising data, which ain't really that surprising, which is the rash of shootings that we see in terms of people, particularly African American people of color, who are shot by police. It's not really a frequent phenomenon.
Yeah,
right? It doesn't happen a lot, and so when you see it happening, 2-3 times a summer, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year, it's because this isn't really a phenomenon. This is something that draws attention. I shouldn't say it's not a phenomenon. It's not a frequent phenomenon, but rather it's representative of an overall policing style. It's representative of a lot of little. They're not necessarily microaggressions because they're pretty bold, they're pretty forward, but the number of touches and frisks and searches and detaining without any citation or without any arrest, right? That's what the rallies around deaths are often a way to express, right? And it galvanized. And I'm aware that we're saying this in spite of what's been happening in Milwaukee. We don't want to act like that's not going on. But I really, I'm trying to push you to get to this article, man, so you can talk about.
Oh, so you really want me to start?
I really want you to get there.
As you just want me to go after Dr. Roland Fryer.
I mean, I'm not saying go after, but I'm saying,
Look, man, I was trying to pace myself, Ed. Like,
man, we ain't got time to pace yourself.
Okay, look. Okay, so Dr. Roland Fryer.
Go in, son.
Obviously, this guy is a brilliant man, and the stat of the day is that his research found that he says that there is no racial discrimination that's happening with any of the police shootings. Specifically, he was talking about police shootings, and later on he talked about how any circumstances that could lead up to use of force in those particular spaces. And so he did not find any relationship. And now, unlike what a lot of people would think about this, Dr. Roland Fryer, he is African American, and obviously the man is brilliant to whatever degree. He's the youngest African American to receive tenure at Harvard. However, my first thing that I'm going to go in is dude teaches economics. Please don't misunderstand. I'm sure he is genius. economics folks have very different way of seeing the world. Sociologists have very different ways of seeing the world, and so it's like for him to be able to come into thinking that he can run my playground, that's a little man, that's a little insulting to me. Like that he can think that he can do what he's doing in this space. So that really tripped me out, that his background was economics, and that he decides to do a Black Lives Matter, quote, a Black Lives Matter type of study. Oh God, when I'm reading it now, and let me qualify this, is that this came from the newspaper article, and so if there's some misrepresentation that the reporter did, I'm going to go ahead and apologize for that in advance as I continue to rip in. But one of the things that I read in the article is that one of his goals was try to determine were police officers, were they quicker to shoot someone who's black? Now here's the deal. You can't measure that. You can't measure how quickly a police officer will shoot a black person. You can't measure that in the data that we have. If you did an experiment, if you wanted to do an experiment with their police training and things like that, now you have a better space to be able to measure that. But in regards to just data and police reports, there is absolutely no way you can measure the idea of quicker. You can only measure what had happened, right? And so that part disturbs me. Is it really more likely? Because like I said, I'm really questioning everything down to the ground for what he's talking about. Let's see. To me, the main thing that's wrong with his data is that he has to rely on what police officers say. That part trips me out. Like how are you going to, with all due respect, if you're writing in a Black Lives Matter space, you have to be critical. It is fundamental to the Black Lives Matter movement to be critical of what police officers have in their police reports.
I think I don't want to say regardless of the movement, like the context of a specific movement. I think within the context of research.
Yeah, you know what?
Right?
You're right. Yeah.
I mean, because that's the fundamental issue in his entire paper. From my understanding, it's you're trying to randomize something that's not random, right? And you're trying to find you're trying to find issues about race when particularly we're at an era of increasingly non-speaking about race.
Yeah.
So this is, again, just being a real sociologist about this. This is one of the reasons why we teach, critical race theory. We try and practice, see race in everything, regardless if that's the dominant thing happening. Learn how to practice that, exercise that. So when you get to spaces a la Donald Trump, not speaking about race, right? Not speaking about Mexican, but rather speaking about criminals, we understand, there's a correlation that can't be directly quantified. We can't say how is he exactly concerned with the perception of a stereotypical Mexican person who annoys them because they like beans. And I'm being very stereotypical here for a reason, right? Because probably it's a conversation that's happening at Trump Tower. Versus the number of folks who are illegally smuggling weapons. Mm-hmm. You can't quantify the number by which a person is actually expressing that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of difficulties that he's having, and so because he tried to do part of his research was try to figure out instances that would justify police using violence, right? And whether the police officer was, likely to shoot or not. And in his research, he found that his number was that he found that black people were 20% less likely to be shot at than white people. And I'm like, that's interesting. One, it's interesting because he's using the numbers 20%. And again, might be the article's fault, but he's using the word 20% and then less likely. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, folks, just in case you're trying to remember this, is that when you use the word more likely or less likely, that's a rate, right? It's not a percent. And so I'm questioning this right on its face as a statistician, as a USC fellow, all of this stuff that I am, as a community college professor, as a black man, I am questioning this right on his face because he's not even using the right terms to talk about the right things. And so that's something, like I said, so that's off to the side, and yet at the same time, to continue to critique is that he only when he talked about this part of it, he only focused on one city, and that was Houston. And that to me is perplexing in and of itself. But he said that he got the best data from that space, and so I'm like, okay, well, whatever, work with that. But coming back to that idea of saying, what justifies a police officer shooting someone or not. You know what? I know that this is kind of hopefully this example works with this generation. I remember in American History X with Ed Norton Jr. In it, and I remember that the black guy that wound up helping Ed Norton's neo-Nazi character become converted, if you would, enlightened, I should say, that he talked about how the black guy, he talked about how the police officer scared him, like, pointed a gun at him and said, drop everything. And the black guy had a TV in his hand, and he dropped the TV, and it hit the police officer's toe. And then the police officer called that, like assault, assault against a police officer. And Ed Norton's character is like, oh, that's bullshit, right? And it's like, and the black guy was like, that is what happened to me. Yeah. And so when you talk to me about what police officers put in as what the black person did versus what the white person did, I'm going to look at that heavily suspect. Because time and time again, what we find in black space is that, I know I'm going off on this one, but it's just so infuriating that, just a few weeks ago, that Fresno police officers, they shot a white dude, right? And he was unarmed, and the family put up this big old fuss like, oh my God, police are killing white people. Why isn't anybody mad about them killing my son? And the police officer's like, your son said that they hated their life. They reached behind their back. They were moving backward, reached behind their back, and then lunged forward. It was like, yo, to me, you're going to get shot for that. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because they brought out the video evidence later, and guess what? It supported what was in the police officer's report. It absolutely 100% collaborated what the police officer said. Well, guess what we have in our spaces is that we have police officers writing specific things, and then later on, because somebody was in the bushes at the right place and the right time and was able to actually say, no, that's not what happened to the police officer. And so, like I said, it comes all the way back to questioning on his face how black bodies are policed in the first place.
I'm gonna tell you like this. This is the thing. I don't know what thing, but this is the thing.
The thing. Talk to me.
When the officer shot Charles Kinsley, and I asked him, why'd you shoot him? He had his hands up.
Had his hands up.
The man was laying on the ground. An officer said, I don't know. Yeah. When the man said, I don't know, it blew a big hole in a lot of the research. Because how many folks don't know? I've watched time and time again the footage of random people, of pastors, of protests, whoever, and then they go out and take the police course, and the person just shoots. Pop, pop. Why'd you shoot him? Man, I don't know. I got scared. I did it. So I'm skeptical of anyone. I mean, this is why we have words and terms like institutional discrimination, discrimination of racism. These are things that are operating on systematically and to a degree subconsciously, right? And subconscious isn't even a word that I use as a sociologist, but I've taken the skin tone bias test, right? These are things that you can't actively measure by asking questions, by looking at data. There is just certain phenomenon and practices that, they're social facts. And we ignore these things as facts. We ignore that they exist. We're likely to get a big misunderstanding of how the world works, right? And we're likely to say that it doesn't matter as much, or less likely, or more likely, when the reality of it is, it's just not the case, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, we got my man Viet over here. He looked like he's trying to say something. Viet, let me try and Viet in. This is Viet, my poet extraordinaire. San Diego. I don't know how to get you plugged in, Viet. You look like your mic's muted. Say what's up to the people. Oh, there you go. You're in.
Am I in?
You're in. Say what's up. You've been listening to this conversation, man. What's your thoughts on this?
Man, I've been listening. I'm also in Denver right now. But anyways, we're just traveling, and I just saw you guys on. I just thought I'd drop in. But I think the component you're talking about with fear is very valid, and I don't feel that society has really gotten a hold of how to manage fear, that very powerful emotion. And I was
Mm,
talking to my friend Tali. Uh, during this trip, and we're just okay. How do we just address people's emotions, right? And we're really talking on the context of educating people to just basically bridge gaps and to establish empathy. And people can't empathize with another person because a lot of times they don't know how to even empathize with themselves and the
mm,
feelings and emotions that they are feeling. So whenever you don't have effective ways of dealing with your own anger and own fear and your own hate, that's going to come out towards other people because
right.
it's so much harder to deal with those things for yourself. So if I have a lot of self hate in myself or self pity or self loathing, I'm not going to admit that, especially if I'm not trying to do the work on myself.
Right,
So
right,
that comes out towards other people, and so we can easily just hide behind these, that I don't know, right? I don't know. I was scared, and that's a completely legitimate argument
right.
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
cannot you cannot deny someone's fear, but we also have to say, well, how come you weren't educated enough to know to calm down, right? Like
Right,
like
right.
like remain calm.
right.
In a situation where peace can easily de-escalate things.
Yeah.
But I feel we're just in a high tension environment, and
Hmm.
people are just on edge.
Yeah.
You
No
know,
one knows how to trust anybody.
yeah, Viet, let me jump in with you and say this that, when it comes to managing your fears, like, look, if it's Ant taking a shot at somebody because he's scared, if it's you taking a shot at somebody because they
I'm gonna tell
scared,
you right now, I'm shooting. You give me a gun, I'm
uh,
shooting.
I
I don't even
completely,
need. I'm not. I don't even need to be halfway scared.
yeah,
Not even
and I,
halfway.
right, and I get this. Like, as an average everyday person walking the street, I get that. We're talking about our police officers, though, right? And to make sure, it's like to make sure that we understand that police officers are human. We also have to understand that police officers have taken on for themselves the higher responsibility of being able to manage their fear, right? To be able to manage those stereotypes, and hopefully, in theory, in the future, to manage all of those things, that they've taken on that as a responsibility because that should be part of the job, right? That is part of the job. If Ann and I, we grading, right? We can't be all pissed off. We teachers, we can't be pissed off that we have to grade. You know what I'm saying? Or you can be pissed off, but you got to do it.
I'll do you one better, right? And this doesn't compare in terms of life and death situations, but as part of my job, I have to be open to disagreement in a
Hmm.
way that other people in other jobs, they don't have to deal with disagreement. They don't have to deal with different ideas. They don't have to deal with someone who fundamentally sees the world different from me and grade them fairly and accordingly. Right? Most
Yeah,
people at their jobs, they don't like you. You don't like them. They don't have to talk to them except for
yeah.
their boss. If I don't like you, I got to talk to you and not
Mhm.
just talk to you, but listen to your ideas and
Yeah.
grade you accordingly in a fair way. So
No, absolutely, absolutely.
let's switch topics, man. We could be here all day.
Oh wait, hold up. No, I got to say
Oh,
this
you got
one
one
more.
more?
I just one more point, and we'll move on because the last critique that I have of this man's study, because look, like I said, I get that he's genius. I completely understand that, but this was a working paper, and for people who don't know what that means, basically that means it wasn't published yet, and so he's gotten a lot of press over something that wasn't even published yet. And I guarantee you, if my man if Dr. Roland Fryer sends that paper to me, I'm jacking that bad boy up. Right? It's like there's gonna be a lot of red marker up on that bad boy because the last thing for me to mention was that he tried to do a more comprehensive analysis. So this is on that stat side, right? that he tried to do a more comprehensive analysis with a smaller data set. Anybody who knows anything about stats is that if you try to go into more detail, then you need a bigger data set. The reason why that we can't get into a lot of the nuances with these bigger data sets is because they just don't ask those type of questions. And so he was trying to do all this nuanced stuff with just like 10 counties or something like that, and that is impossibly small. Even if he had thousands of samples, that is a really small. If you're trying to take like 20, 30, 40, 50 factors into consideration in regards to why people get shot. And so because what Cody Ross found, he's another researcher, and he used the United States Police Shooting Database, which is a much bigger database. It covers the entire nation. And what he found was that being black and unarmed and shot by the police was 3.5 times greater than for being white and unarmed. And so then when it comes to what data that you want to listen to, all I know is that all those conservative talk radio stations and whatnot, and all those folks, I know that they are focusing on what Dr. Roland Fryer has said, but they ain't paying no attention to what Cody Ross, I'm assuming it's Dr. Cody Ross, has done with his research. I hate saying it like this because it's just real. Honestly, I feel like it was a little bit irresponsible, but by a little bit, I mean a lot. Irresponsible for your boy to come out with a working paper and just talk about it so definitively, to give all these conservative talk radio stations all this supposed ammunition, when anybody with any background in looking at statistics at all can see and poke holes in this bad boy all up and down and whatnot. And it's just, like I said, it's just incredibly frustrating. To whatever degree, the privilege that he has of being a Harvard professor in economics, who's trying to talk about social justice type of issues. It's incredibly infuriating to me. Obviously on a whole bunch of different levels. But if we need to move on, let's move, because yeah, you're right. We surely can talk about this for a long time.
We can. I just appreciate the fact that you, community college, Maricosta College teacher, took a Harvard professor to task.
Well, I'll do this all day. All day.
No fear, son. No fear.
No fear.
I hope you get a call from Harvard talking about, come debate us.
Please do. Please, oh my goodness, please do.
We'll be the great debaters. Except I hate cameras, so I won't have nothing to say. You'd have to have my back. All right, let's switch topics. Yo, Bruce, I want to show you something.
Show it to me.
And you have no idea what we're talking about right now.
I have no idea.
So this is going to be awesome. We're going to get your genuine reaction.
Every time you do this, it scares me.
Yes, your genuine reaction. You ready?
Yes.
I got a question for you. Is this racist?
Ooh.
Ellen photoshopped of her riding along Usain Bolt's back while he's winning the 100 meters. She says, "This is how I'm running errands from now on."
Oh man.
The people can see the image now. It's posted on ABC News.
Is it racist?
Now, before you go further, because I already kind of know your answer to this. Let's give you the context. She tweeted out this image. This is how I run from now on. And following that, she received a lot of backlash from folks saying, inappropriate, gross, racist, racism, etc. Mm-hmm. She followed those responses by saying, "I am highly aware of the racism that exists in our country. It is the furthest thing from who I am."
Yeah. Remember, we're talking about institutional discrimination today?
That's our key word.
People say that with us. Institutional discrimination. And so, regardless of whether she acknowledges it or not, that was racist as hell. that was racist as hell. It reminded me of Driving Miss Daisy or something. It was like, yo, on the backs of black folks. Yes, that's how we run our errands, because that's how we built our nation. So why wouldn't we do something like that? Why wouldn't it just be a natural image of exploiting black excellence for white folks? Why would that not be racist? Or why would that not be an image that comes to your head in regards to it sounds cute, And look, I get it. Ellen DeGeneres, she's doing a lot of work, right? I mean, she's doing work. She got a talk show. It very well may be the farthest thing from her mind to talk about racist stuff in a conscious level.
Right.
Subconsciously, boy, I tell you, stuff that just pops out. It's like, Yeah,
I'll tell you
that's
this. If
yeah.
you watch Ellen, I watch Ellen.
Mm.
She's a comedian who had
Word.
a TV show and did stand up and hosts and has her own talk show. I'll tell you right now, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's Ellen funny. It's
Yeah.
certainly Ellen funny. And that's what she does. This is the difference. This is why I stress the difference between being racist and participating in a racist structure. Right?
Okay.
This
Yeah.
is the difference between racism that's always existing and always operating in our country
Hmm.
versus being a racist, right?
Yeah.
And to the degree I don't know what being a racist actually means, because it's much more accurate to say that we all participate in a racist system. It's
Yes.
quite fair to say that regardless of our backgrounds, our ethnicities, regardless of whether we are white or whether we are people of color, oppressed or not, how much privilege, etc., we all do things that reproduce racism in our country. At least if you are participating in capitalism at some point,
Absolutely.
you're
Yeah.
doing it. And so the line oftentimes gets crossed where that hurts people and where that's funny, but it still reproduces something, or
Right.
where it causes trauma in people directly, or
Mhm.
where it harkens into imagination, something that was painful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
No.
this image harkens to a time that was definitely painful for a lot of people, of which the remnants are still operating today, right?
Yeah.
And so my thing for showing this, especially in the context of what we're talking about today with institutional discrimination, is okay, you don't have to be racist, but you're reproducing. You're
Yeah.
reproducing it right
Yeah.
here, right now. And
Hmm.
so if there's one thing that I try to do when I teach, is to get people to a call to accountability.
Right.
You said the
Right.
joke, it wasn't funny. Hell, maybe it was funny, but acknowledge it. My bad. That was hurtful. I did not see at any
Yeah.
point in me doing this, I did not see where this drew on that. But because you're not of that particular experience, you would not have known.
Yeah. I know. Just own it. Apologize. Move on. People love Ellen. You know what I'm saying? It would be so easy to just move on from this, but it's like if you don't own it, if you don't, it's like, oh, she's denying participating in a racist structure versus, participating in racism versus just going, hey, yo, my bad. I didn't see it that way. I didn't mean it that way, but I can see how others have seen it that way, and
I
I
want to
completely apologize. I own it, and
Let me read her response again. Let me read her response again. I am highly aware of the racism that exists in our country.
mm,
No, you're not highly
no,
aware.
no, no, obviously not. Obviously not. You're not. You're talking about riding the
So,
back of a black dude,
right.
and
So
yeah.
so so you might be aware of extreme cases of racism in the country, right?
Mhm.
And with all due respect to Ellen's positionality, right? Let's not act like Ellen wasn't one of the first people to come out on national television as gay, right?
Yeah,
Let's not
yeah, that was a
act
huge. Yeah,
like
that.
she isn't a civil rights icon in her own right, right? And I use that word civil rights advisedly. Um,
Mhm.
but let's not act like you are highly aware of the racism in our country.
Yeah, yeah,
And
no,
and even if you are, to go from I am highly aware of the racism that exists in our country, period, next sentence, it is the furthest thing from who I am, then those sentences don't even connect. Right? So if you are highly aware, then you would recognize that this is what you just did.
yeah, exactly, exactly. No, it's like I said, it's disappointing. But like I said, a lot of people love Ellen. They're gonna give her, her Ellen pass, and to whatever degree, earned or unearned, it'll be what it is. But like I said, it's like reproducing these images and creating that. It's like, and because I already know, man, I hate saying it quite like this, but it's just so real. It's like I got a lot of white friends that would argue, it's not even white, just conservative friends that would just go, well, if it was a white person riding on the back of another white person, would that been race? It's like, no, it wouldn't have been. And they're like, I don't get it. It's like, yo, one image supports racism and the institution and hundreds of years of black oppression. The other image does not.
Right.
Period. We're done. Like, I don't know how much clearer I can make it for you. You know, I don't know how clear I can. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it goes back to, all the data doesn't necessarily inform people of what's a more accurate representation of what's happening in the world.
yeah. And so, hey, with that, I tell you what, I'll give more props to the president of the Boston Red Sox. Remember, or when we talked about the
More
day,
props. Shout
even
out.
more props. Shout out to
Shout
your
out to that
boy
guy.
for
Shout
being
out to
able to
him.
recognize
And I'm an
because
Angels fan. I'm an Angels fan, and I'm saying shout out to the guy who said, we can't give out 15,000 of these.
we
That's
can't do
just,
we can't do it, right? It's like,
it's,
yo, if she would have had somebody like him on Ellen's, if Ellen would have had somebody like him on her squad, we could have avoided this whole thing. But
yeah,
nah,
we're talking
so,
about it.
because of course she's highly educated about
Yeah,
race stuff,
I know she's highly aware. Highly
highly
aware.
aware, highly
Highly
aware.
aware.
But,
Hey, man, let's get out of here. Let me get prepared for class. Hey, what are you watching?
uh, so I just got finished. So we're picking up on Agents of Shield. Agents of Shield on Netflix.
Okay.
They have a lot of reconstructing to do. They made us wait a long time to put the third season up. And my son and I, we promised to watch it together, and so I haven't been able to just binge watch this bad boy. But I'm entertained. Agents of Shield. They actually did something really right. Versus if anybody is of a fan of Heroes, this was back in the day. They did something right in that they did not overpower their superheroes.
Hmm.
Because when somebody has all the powers, Superman. When somebody has all the powers, it just don't make no sense. Like
Yeah.
you just can't make it make sense. That's why Hope is never going to be a successful single movie because you can't make him make sense because he's so damn powerful. You can't make Superman make sense because he's just too damn powerful. But so anyway, Agents of Shield, props to them. I'm really enjoying the third season and the direction it's going to. And but yeah, so what are you listening to, Ant?
I'm gonna defer that question to Viet. Viet, are you still there? No? You muted yourself? All right, well then I guess I got it. Viet, what you listening to?
I caught the tail end up. What's the question?
So what music you listening to right now, Viet?
Oh my God, I'm on Pandora, all stations, like just shuffle.
Give the people a
Uh,
favorite. Who you shuffling? Who's Pandora giving you something good?
Coldplay, Coldplay. I'm excited to get back to Cali so I can finally go to the Coldplay concert in Pasadena.
Yeah, that's a strange fruit first. Coldplay's never been mentioned on this show.
Hey, okay, okay. You want? Let me see what else I
But I
got.
but I dig that big drum, man. I dig that big drum that they have.
The big drum. What other music? Tali, what music are you listening to? You want? Hey, let me introduce you guys to Tali real quick.
Talib, you got to be quicker than that, man. We ready to go.
What you
Talib,
li-
what you listening to, buddy?
What am I listening to?
Yeah, what you got going on
Uh,
in the car?
we're listening to gospel. Mahalia Jackson playlist. We're listening to Most Def, uh,
James Brown,
James Brown. Uh, you know,
Stevie.
Stevie's. Soulful stuff.
There you go. There you go. That's probably more in the strange fruit repertoire. But hey, you know what? Coldplay can get in there with Stevie and Aretha too. Maybe. I don't
You
know.
know, they
By the
got some.
way,
They got
Big
messages of love.
Big Crit.
two 15s, 15s. Yeah, hey, yo, props to the dudes. That was Viet Mai and Tali. Those are my collective purpose brothers right there. Tali Mugabe, amazing, brilliant scholar. Viet, another mathematician guy. I don't know how smart y'all are. If y'all could do algebra, y'all brilliant to me. So it is what it is, Dr. Hoskins. All right, man. So we get it up again next week, yeah?
All right,
All right. Theme music.
hit the theme music, bruh.
I don't have it.
Man, you pissing me off.
There it
Oh, there
is.
we go. There we go.
Make that crop top drop like black socks and the black top on and at the pop. He stopped to laugh the dog, said you got the blood, we listen to Noriega. Suit shirt bones that keep like Darth Vader. College we was rocking the Supra, Darth Vader's. Now we watching Moses stick our noses in the Vader.